Before we begin, I thought it might be helpful for our viewers to understand some background. Firstly, as a lot of you will know, I was not supportive of Kevin Spacey after he got cancelled. As a gay man myself, I was challenged by the way he came out of the closet amid allegations from Anthony Rapp. And to be honest, I didn't really feel there was much of a mystery in general with Kevin. It seemed to be a very easy story to piece together. Poorly closeted actor, had more than one secret to hide, and so like most people, I believed what I heard. But after 7 years, I think the case against Kevin Spacey requires a closer look. He's the only person I can think of that has been cancelled in the court of public opinion, yet successful in an actual court of law, multiple times, I might add. Nobody else that has been cancelled has ever successfully defended themselves in a court of law. So surely, after being exonerated by a jury of his peers in both the US and the UK, Hollywood would retract their cancellation, right? Well, if you think so, you would be wrong. But the question is why? And for Mr. Spacey, another question must be what? What exactly is one to do in this situation? Do the work. The woke left will tell you. But they'll never actually tell you what the work is. And that's because the left has no interest in redemption for anyone. And clearly no interest in offering forgiveness for a man that has never been found guilty of a single crime. I have a lot of empathy and compassion for what Kevin has gone through. I'm ashamed to say that I had to be cancelled myself in order to see things differently. I hope that's not what needs to happen in order for you to take another look. And now, I hope you enjoy my interview with Kevin Spacey.
Thank you for doing this with me, Dan.
And obviously we're here because I want to ask you about this Channel 4 documentary. But let's perhaps give some background first. So in June 2022, Roast Beef Productions announced that they were doing a hit piece on you for Channel 4. Now at that time, you were just months away from your trial with Anthony Rapp. So what was it like to hear that they were already making a documentary on you?
Well, in addition to the Rapp trial, I was also working with my UK counsel on preparing for the criminal trial that was to be a year later in June and July of 2023. So my real efforts were on the trials. And I thought if I could prove my innocence there, everything else would just go away, which apparently was not the case.
Okay, so tell us what's happened now.
Well, on Monday, April 22nd, my manager, Evan Lowenstein, received a letter from a guy named Mike Lerner at Roast Beef Productions, alerting me that, well, I think you have the letter. Maybe it's better if you read it. This is one script I'd rather not read again.
Yes, so we will be completely transparent with this. We will put the letter on screen so the viewers can actually see what was put to you if you are happy with that.
Oh, absolutely. I've got nothing left to hide.
Okay, good. So the letter starts, "Dear Mr. Spacey, I'm writing to you in order to give you a fair opportunity to reply to statements that we intend to broadcast in a two-part documentary that will be broadcast on Channel 4 on the 6th and 7th of May 2024. Please respond in writing by no later than Monday the 29th of April. So if I've got this right, Kevin, they spent nearly 2 years on this hit piece and they think a fair opportunity is 7 days?
Yeah, and you haven't even got to the good part. These accusations date back to 1976, which is 48 years ago. I mean, you have to realize that it took me in the Rapp case nearly a year to find evidence that proved that he'd lied about this encounter he claimed he had with me, an encounter that never happened. And that was allegedly to have occurred 31 years prior.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest, I was always wondering why you just didn't deny it outright from the beginning.
Well, because I didn't have the ability to deny it right away. I mean, if you look at what was being alleged, he wasn't accusing me of like shooting up a neighborhood or of raping him or fondling him or even kissing him. He claimed that after everyone left a party that he said I had thrown at my apartment, which never happened, I found him in my bedroom that I didn't have, where I drunkenly swayed in a doorway that didn't exist, and then picked him up and laid myself on top of him, which we now also know never happened. But even if it would have happened, it's the type of occurrence that when I was in my 20s, it would have been simply embarrassing, but not criminal. But this was also happening at the height of the Me Too hysteria. So everything just sounded worse, including to me. And BuzzFeed gave us a few hours to respond to their story before they published it. And then once it was published, that sent us fumbling even more into an effort to try to fix it, which is why I said what I said in my statement, which I have brought you some gifts today, and one of them is that. So I'll just read what I said publicly. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago. But if I did behave then as he describes, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior. God, boy, that's just hard to read.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought you probably knew that one by heart.
Yeah, well, I probably could have, but I've done my best to try to forget it. Look, the point is that I was alleged to have happened something 30 years earlier, and I had no time to investigate any of it. So I didn't deny that, but what I did say was that I don't remember it, which at that point was true because it didn't happen. And I really actually can't describe for you the feeling of confusion that took place that night and the pressure that I was under to respond. I mean, I can literally feel my heart racing again thinking about it even now.
Oh, believe me, I can imagine that.
Oh, wait, you know what? There's another thing that people probably don't have any idea about. Is when BuzzFeed sent us the information in advance, like Channel 4 is now doing, they referred to Rapp having a 17-year-old friend with him that night in question. Now, both Rapp and BuzzFeed knew that that person was an actor named John Barrowman. And BuzzFeed knew that Rapp alleged that this event had occurred in May of 1986. A simple Google search would have revealed that John Barrowman was 19 years old in May of 1986. And had they told me it was Barrowman, it would have changed everything because I knew exactly who he was. Actually, maybe if you could Google John Barrowman at 19 and Anthony Rapp at 14.
Okay.
John Barrowman testified in court that he and I and Anthony had hung out, and that on that night I'd made a pass at him later in the evening, and that I do recall. And he said that what I didn't recall was, frankly, this kid who was tagging along. I don't know if you've been able to find any pictures or not.
Yeah, no, I have, and we'll put them up on the screen so that people can see.
Well, anyway, Anthony Rapp testified that he was only ever in my apartment one time in his life, and John Barrowman testified that he was there at the same time with Anthony at my place. No party, just the three of us. They wanted to meet my dog. And when Anthony stepped into the bathroom, Barrowman testifies that I made a pass at him. So at least I had the decency to wait until the kid got out of the room. Well, it's all there. My point is, it's all in the public records for anybody to see, but nobody cares because it's just easier and a better story that I was the bad guy. And BuzzFeed was later confronted with the fact that John Barrowman was in fact 19 and not 17, as they published. And to this day, they still have him as a 17-year-old friend in their story. And let there be no doubt that the unnamed person was verified in court by all of the parties to be John Barrowman, including John Barrowman himself. So why has BuzzFeed refused to go back and change the article?
Yeah, I don't understand why they wouldn't. Who was the journalist?
A guy named Adam Very, and he got a promotion. He now works at Variety.
Why does that not surprise me?
Yeah, well, maybe it also won't surprise you that the evidence that we presented in court proved that Rapp and Adam Very were colluding together, with Very actually suggesting changing certain dates so that I wouldn't be able to refute the allegation. Well, and by the way, if Adam Very wants to ever tell his side of the story and explain why he refuses to correct the information that he now knows to have been false in the article that he wrote, we'd be open to hearing that. Unfortunately, though, the moment he was asked questions in a deposition, he hid behind the reporter's shield, which protects journalists from having to reveal sources and any other information.
Yeah, of course. I can imagine why he probably doesn't want to speak about this.
It was a total hit and run.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that, but can I ask you about the second part of that infamous statement that you made in late 2017?
Oh, you mean when I tripped over my hockey stick and came tumbling out of the closet?
Well, yes, look, let's be honest, Kevin, it wasn't the most graceful coming out of all time.
No, not at all. It was terribly timed and thought out.
But I'm guessing because of everything that was going on, you didn't appreciate that at the time?
I didn't appreciate much of anything at the time. I mean, look, to try to understand this in some context, how it came to be, that statement, I had been working with Evan on finding a way out of the closet. And he was incredibly encouraging and supported me to do that, was helping me to accept who I was. And he felt that if I was ready to come out of the closet, then he wanted to be completely supportive of that decision. But after being so fiercely closeted for so long, I had no idea what was on the other side of that door. So we were looking for a subtle way in which to be able to reveal myself without making too much of a big deal about it. And in 2016, I was nominated for an Emmy, very honored to be so, for House of Cards. It was like my 8th or 9th nomination, but I never won. Now, the Emmy is a female statue. It's not like the Oscar or the Tony, which are male statues, which I have been fortunate to have won. But Evan came up with this brilliant idea that if I were to win, that I would take a hold of the trophy and look at it briefly and then say, it sure is nice to hold a woman for a change.
Well, that would have been an incredible coming out.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, I didn't win the Emmy in 2016 or in 2017.
Okay, so maybe we blame the Emmys.
Well, the Emmys, understand, are in September. And so 1 month later, I'm hit with the rap allegations. And against better advice from Evan and others, I decided to come crashing out of the closet because I'd already made the decision to come out. And of course, I'm so ignorant about all things gay that the only thing that occurs to selfish me is that some guy is accusing me of something, and so I'm being outed. That's what my brain is telling me. I'm not paying attention to the fact that Rap claims he was 14 years old, and so just like everyone else who saw me as Frank Underwood picking up this feeble 14-year-old, when in fact I was an unknown 26-year-old at the time, but I just wasn't thinking of anything other than this being an outing, which I still have to say I believe was his intention as well.
Why do you say that?
Well, if you look at the BuzzFeed article, which I have here,
Okay.
Anthony Rapp says, where is it? At that time, I wanted to scream to the rooftops, this guy is a fraud. Okay, but why didn't he want to scream to the rooftops that I was a child molester or a sexual abuser? If that's what he was accusing me of having done to him as a child, why is he so concerned about me being called out as a fraud? What came out actually quite clearly in the court is that Anthony Rapp had been jealous of the career that I had made for myself by fraudulently staying in the closet.
And I think we'll learn that jealousy is often a big part of these cases. But is it true, Kevin, that the judge actually ordered Rapp in the end to pay you money?
Yes, he did. I believe $40,000 was as much money as the judge was able to order Rapp to pay me, which was certainly nothing like the $40 million he was asking from me in his trial, and certainly not enough to cover my legal bills.
So I'm just looking at the check there on the screen. Who is Keller Anderley?
Well, that's my law firm.
Okay, and this was a jury trial, right?
Yes, it was. And I thank God for a jury of my peers. It took them 45 minutes to unanimously decide to send Rapp home empty-handed.
Kevin, I feel like after the narrative, especially in the mainstream media over the past few years, a lot of folk are going to be surprised by what you're sharing here.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope so.
Okay, going back to the statement that you put out in 2017, though, I think it's fair to ask, would you have done anything differently now if you could?
Well, it's certainly a fair question, but really, it's impossible to answer. I can tell you this, that having this conversation right now with you to expose what's happening with this Channel 4 documentary and including the public in that process is a reflection of what this experience has taught me. And another thing I've learned is that I will most assuredly never again apologize for something I did not do.
What about apologizing for something you did do, though?
Absolutely. And I have. Over the past handful of years, I have reached out to many people to make amends.
Can you elaborate? How did it go? Did they accept your apologies?
Well, I mean, that's really between me and them, but I can tell you that I asked everyone to be completely honest with me, and they were. And I heard things that were not easy to hear. It was not a pleasant experience, but it was an important and necessary one, and has really, really helped me a lot. I've grown a lot. And I'm truly grateful to all of them. And I would like to think, maybe hope, that they considered me a much better person than I was before.
So given all of what you've been through, all of what you've clearly lost, does it bother you that some people in public, especially in the public eye, think that you haven't paid a big enough price?
Yes. But I didn't want to play their game.
And what do you think their game was?
Well, they want me to go on television and apologize to the world for every terrible thing I've ever done. It's not that I'm above saying I'm sorry, but as ironic as that may sound, I find it entirely self-serving and disingenuous to offer some blanket apology on TV. The only reason people do that is it's some sort of PR reason when they're trying to quickly fix something. Well, you know what? I tried that with my apology and I failed miserably. Look, I've learned a lot in the past 7 years. And believe me, I've had plenty of time on my hands to listen. And it's become my opinion that if you haven't actually taken inventory of your life and begun to deal with the issues that you needed to deal with and make the changes you needed to make, it's meaningless and completely impersonal to apologize on Oprah or Anderson Cooper for something you might have done to someone else. I wanted to ensure that by the time I did speak out now publicly, I could be confident that I've taken responsibility for the mistakes that I made. I worked them out with those that I've hurt. And that said, nobody in Hollywood has ever presented a path back for me. There's no coursework material I've been given, no boxes to check, no nothing. It seems that some are content with just canceling me forever. It's a life sentence. And the pain that that has caused me and my friends and Evan and my family has been immense. And I take full responsibility for my past behavior and my actions. But I cannot and will not take responsibility or apologize to anyone who's made up stuff about me or exaggerated stories about me, because that's what the press wants.
No, I don't blame you. You shouldn't have to do that. But it is, I think, one of the most chilling aspects of cancel culture now, that there is no way back and people seem to revel in who they can bring down, whether the facts actually bear out or not. But look, we're reading through this letter you received from Roast Beef Productions and Channel 4 about this documentary that they have spent over 2 years working on, but only want to give you a week, just 1 week, to go back as far as 48 years to find evidence to refute what's been alleged. The documentary, they write, will include various statements regarding alleged inappropriate behaviour by you, including testimony of individuals who have not spoken publicly before. The bulk of the testimony is being made by 10 men regarding events they say took place between 1976 and 2013 and relate to what they describe as unwanted sexual behaviour by you towards them. The detail of that testimony is set out below. Many of the men cite an unequal power dynamic between you and them in the context of an extremely competitive and insecure work environment. Now, Kevin, that's an interesting one, isn't it? That this whole unequal power dynamic thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite tricky the way people talk about power dynamics. It's as if we somehow suddenly decided that leverage doesn't exist. So I think in every relationship there are power dynamics at play, regardless of whether either person is deemed to be powerful by public perception. And any therapist will tell you that they see this in relationships all the time. And so, look, I'm not an idiot. I walk into a bar. I know that I'm Kevin Spacey, and for better or worse, that might mean something to some people that may change the way they behave. But if some attractive guy comes up to me and says hello and flirts, is he off limits because I'm famous?
Well, I wouldn't say so.
Well, the truth is, some people say that I hid behind the closet. And so to them, I would ask, okay, so do I need to wear a sign on my forehead that says that I'm gay and therefore I can alert everybody else to what my intentions might be? I mean, what if I wish to go home with a woman one night, which I've done many times in my life? Am I now going to be told that I'm hiding behind being gay? I mean, what are the rules of engagement here? Am I supposed to present a plan, for the evening up front? Hey, it's great meeting you. You're very attractive. If things go well, maybe like in an hour, I'll put my arm around your shoulder, and then maybe a little later, I'll even place my hand on your leg. And at some point, if I'm feeling like this is going in the right direction, you haven't told me to stop. Maybe I'll lean in and try to kiss you. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll end up back at my place. And if any of that, if you feel uncomfortable at all, let me know. But if not, if that all sounds cool, then let's, grab a seat and what are you drinking? Well, I mean, is that what I'm supposed to do? Is that what everyone is doing and I just didn't get the memo? Or are we all just fumbling through social and romantic encounters trying to get it right?
Indeed. And God help them if they become famous.
Yeah, well, look, I've never told someone that if they give me sexual favors, then I will help them out with their career. Never. And people have testified before, and I'm sure we'll hear it again, that I've clearly hooked up with, some men who thought they might get ahead in their careers by having a relationship with me. But there was no conversation with me. It was all part of their plan that was always destined to fail because I wasn't in on the deal. So where exactly is the power dynamic in that circumstance, I ask?
That's true. Also, it seems you're meant to be responsible for the environment being competitive and insecure as well. You're being blamed for that.
Well, I don't know. Isn't it easier to just blame me than accept any measure of responsibility for people's own behaviors? I mean, another reason I'm doing this interview is because I want to bookmark this time for the future so that people can't come along later on and say, well, why didn't I attempt to interject some common sense into this madness? I've been mired in litigation for years and years and years and was just unable to speak in a public forum. And look, I'd also be just fine to humbly return to work and be grateful without saying anything, but I can't go through this again, allowing myself to be baselessly attacked without defending myself.
As well, you shouldn't. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the one sitting down with you today. Anybody who doesn't know my own story can surely look it up and see that I fought back and won, and I think you will too.
Well, thank you. I hope so.
Okay, let's move on. The letter says the documentary will set out that your power and standing within the industry allowed your behaviour to go unchallenged for a considerable period.
Well, okay, if I was really this monster and everyone knew about it, then why aren't people asking questions about the networks and the studios who were all too happy to monetize off of me while allowing me to roam the streets freely? I mean, why didn't the studios do anything about it? Why did all these people stand on the red carpets with me and say how great it was to work with me? I mean, do you really think that I had more power than them?
No, and the irony is that the studios and networks are continuing to make money off you with this Channel 4 documentary.
Yeah, only this time around they're not paying me for it.
The letter says, this contrasts starkly with the altruistic public statements you have made about your desire to use your success to help progress the careers of others in the artistic community and, quote, sending the elevator back down.
Right. Well, that's about something that I really believe in so much and has been such a big part of my life. And what they're referring to is something that Jack Lemmon, the great actor and my mentor, used to say and passed down to me, which was, if you've done well in the business you wanted to do well in, then you owe it to spend as much time as you can to send the elevator back down and help others coming up. So I built a foundation around that. And here's the reality. Alongside a brilliant talent named Steve Winter, who is the creative director of my foundation, we helped hundreds and hundreds of people all across the world with programs and financial means over so many years. And it meant so much to me. Now, were there times when I would flirt with some of the people who were involved in those programs, who were in their 20s? Yes. Did I ever hook up with another actor? Yes. Did I make a clumsy pass at someone who wasn't interested, as it turned out? Yes. But I was not employing them. I was not their boss. I was oftentimes just swimming in for an hour here and there as a well-known actor to lend support, to ask questions and answer questions. And you look, that may not have been the best decision, and it's not one that I would do today, but it happened. It wasn't illegal, and nor has it ever been alleged to have been illegal.
Okay, that's very honest. In addition to the testimony of the 10 men, we hear from 2 female witnesses to your behaviour, and we hear from 2 journalists who published work about such behaviour by you. The documentary will also include public domain reporting of allegations that have been levelled against you following the allegations made by Anthony Rapp in 2017, which of course we've just spoken about, Kevin. The documentary will also include details of the various legal proceedings and investigations you have been involved in since 2017, including that you have been cleared of all criminal charges against you. Now, I wonder if they'll remind their viewers that Rapp also lost his civil case against you.
Yeah, well, who knows what they're going to do. But, Evan has many friends in the media, and I have never had a really great relationship with him because all they wanted to ask me were questions about my sexuality. But he's often tried to get me to understand, just don't take this stuff too personally. They're journalists, and as lazy as many of them have gotten, they're just trying to earn a living too. And the reason they keep writing about you is they make money off you. Clicks bring eyeballs, and eyeballs equal ad dollars. But during the Rapp trial, there was this one day when Anthony Rapp was on the stand and he was refusing to give a straight answer to a question. And eventually the judge ordered him to say yes or no. And he was then asked in sum and substance if he had lied about the reason he decided to come forward with allegations against me. And he said yes, that he had lied. And the next day, E! News runs a headline that says, Anthony Rapp sets the record straight. I mean, it's all right there. It's just that nobody wants to look closer. Anyhow, it's moments like those that make it hard for me to not wonder if this is really just a personal attack.
Yeah, I understand that, because even as a journalist myself for many years reporting on stories like this, that really does feel like shocking journalism to me. And if I'm honest, I'm not sure I would have believed a lot of this if you didn't have such compelling evidence to the contrary. But okay, so they've told you that they're going to include you've been cleared of all criminal charges against you. Hopefully that won't just be a few words on screen at the end. We know their game, but we'll see. But now it seems they present the personal testimonies of the contributors, as they call them. So back to the letter. In the interest of clarity, we will address the statements in chronological order, starting with behaviour in 1976. In the documentary, we will hear from one man, contributor one, who said that he was in drama club with you in 1976 and 1977 at Chatsworth High School. He told us that you were inspiring and friendly in the club, but he said that one day when he was driving you to an end-of-year party, you reached over and grabbed his genitals. He states that he felt trapped and he was in the car driving. He stated it was a very aggressive sexual move for that age group, but I guess maybe more appropriate when you're 30, I don't know. He said your behaviour is not morally or ethically acceptable. He has never spoken publicly about this incident before. So your response?
Well, look, for starters, I don't know who this is, but I've reached out to several friends of mine from that class who I'm still close with. Mm-hmm. And ironically, the first guy I spoke to said to me, he was entirely straight, by the way, he said to me, Kevin, grabbing someone's junk while we were driving was exactly the kind of thing we were doing at 16 and 17 years old. And we did it specifically because we knew the driver couldn't escape and had to keep from crashing the car. Those were the days. Right?
High school, right?
Right? But look, I understand it's easy for my buddy to make a comment like that because he's not being accused of having done this, sexually aggressive manner 48 years ago. But look, you know what? I'm not here to deny this claim. I have literally no memory of it. And I have plenty of memories of me being a moron from my youth. This just isn't one.
And so I guess one has to wonder why this person has decided to come forward now. I mean, why not in 2017 or even 2018 or 2019? And honestly, why at all, given this is not an allegation that would ever make it into a court, let alone stand a chance of winning. Do you think this person has any sort of nefarious motivation?
Look, I don't know. A bunch of years ago, Evan got a request from the Sun from a journalist who wanted to comment from me about some story they were writing. But the journalist was rather sloppy because they kept a chain in the email between this person and I think her boss that shed some information that might help answer your question. I think you may have that.
Yes, so you've provided me with this email, so let's make it public for the first time. So it's an email from the reporter Emma Parry sent to the Sun executive Will Payne, and it reads, "Hi Will, can I run this by you when you've got a sec? I spoke to Kevin Spacey's brother Randy yesterday, and he had some strong reaction to Spacey starring in the paedophile movie, which was announced yesterday. Yesterday's story didn't do great traffic, but is it still worth doing Randy? We have loads of pics and collects from when I went to visit him that we could reuse. He wants $750. So there we go, the money. So is Randy really your brother, firstly?
Yes, Randy is really my brother. And I have not spoken to him or seen him since our mother passed away in 2003. Mm-hmm. And maybe only 2 other times since he left the house and moved out when I was still in high school. So it's safe to say that I maybe have seen him like 5 times since I was 17 years old. And, I'd like to tell you that he was seeking money because he'd fallen on hard times, but that might imply he was ever in a good place. My last major interaction with him was discovering in 1997 that he had racked up nearly $100,000 on my mother's credit card. I guess it was his roundabout way of getting money out of me because he knew that she couldn't afford it. And so I paid off that. I gave him some money. And then after my mother passed, we parted ways. And then I guess a year or so later, he wrote a book that he said was about him, but my name was in the title. So there was another attempt to get money. And so it's not a real surprise that the Sun was offering money, I guess, or that he was asking for money. But I maybe the people don't really know at home that this is the kind of thing that happens, that they're willing to pay people to tell stories.
No, absolutely. And one thing I've learned the hard way is just how much accusations against high-profile people are very often driven by money. So do you think these people were paid to tell their story for this Channel 4 documentary?
Well, I don't think it's a baseless allegation to suggest it's likely. but perhaps Channel 4 will be willing to clarify.
Yeah, because they don't in the letter. And I think Channel 4 should absolutely state that nobody was paid, if in fact that is the truth, because I think the public is entitled to know that bit of information when these types of egregious and damaging claims are being made. If it was being argued in an actual court, it would have to be disclosed. So if these people are being paid to come forward with allegations personally, I do believe the public should know. So we move on now to your behaviour in 1981. So how old would you have been then, Kevin?
21.
Were you famous then?
No. It would be 10 plus years before I would become known.
Okay, so in the documentary, we will hear from a man, contributor 2, who has previously spoken in the media about his experience with you in 1981. He said that he knew of you only vaguely from working in Joe Papp's public theatre. He states that one day you came into the office where he worked, approached him with an erection inside your trousers, grabbed him in the genitals, and pushed him onto his desk.
Oh, well, I see that he's already changed his story from the last time he told it, because in a courtroom, he told the jury that I had approached him. Mind you, I'm 21, he's like 29 or 27 or something. He says that I picked him up in the air with one hand as if I was like Superman. And now he's saying I grabbed him and pushed him onto his desk, which I can only assume is because he was called out about it in a court case. I believe he also said that I was wearing jeans. And now you just said trousers, I think, where it might be easier to see someone's erection than a pair of jeans. So. Also, just know this, when this guy was asked how he knew who I was, testified he'd seen my picture in a program for a play, Henry IV, which I was doing in Central Park at the time for Joe Papp, and he testified that he'd never met me or seen me before in person, so my face in this program was the only possible way to identify me. And at trial, I happen to have it here, we produced the program, which is here, of Henry IV I, in which there are no pictures of any of the actors at all. There are some pictures in the back of previous productions, but that's what he said. There was no photo.
Wow, that's a mic drop moment. So that was part of the rap trial?
Yes, it was. And he was no more believed by the jury than Rapp was.
Okay, well, I think we can move on from this one, but for the sake of full transparency, which I don't think the viewers are going to get from Channel 4, let's read through the rest of this person's allegation. He stated that you were on top of him and pressing against him. He said there was no flirting, nothing but physical force. He also stated that your behaviour was cold in a way that was almost inhuman. He told us that he pushed you off him, at which point you stormed out of the office without saying a word.
Right. Just to interject here, he also in court told the jury that the door was wide open and the incident allegedly happened during the workday. He testifies that he screamed for help. Actors were literally practicing a performance in the theater right there. I mean, it was an open space. And apparently no one heard his alleged yelling. And apparently now he's decided to drop that part of his story entirely.
Not surprising as to why, it seems. He has previously spoken to the press about his experiences of that encounter with you. He also testified in the trial in which Anthony Rapp made accusations against you of a sexual nature from 1986.
Yeah, actually, I'm speaking of changing stories. Anthony Rapp's original story made no mention of my touching any part of his body sexually. It was only when he sued me in civil court that he suddenly decided to add that my hand had grazed his rear when he alleges I went to pick him up. Because without that new piece of information, he would not have been able to bring a legal case against me.
Why?
Well, I'm no lawyer, but I believe it's because he needed to be able to claim that this was a sexual assault, so he had to have me touch him in some way. BuzzFeed didn't require that, but the actual law did.
Got it. Okay, understand. In addition to his personal testimony, he said that he believes your decision to come out as gay after the Rapp allegations was warped and wrong.
Well, I can't argue with that.
Okay. Just finishing up this one, he said that your behaviour did not occur only when you had power, but is intrinsic to your personality. Then we move on to your behaviour in 1998. So by now you're very famous, right?
Yes, I'm definitely known in Hollywood because I won the Oscar for The Usual Suspects 2 years before.
Great film. And in the documentary, we will hear from a man, contributor 3, who you met in 1998 in the Viper Room on Sunset Boulevard, and then went with you to a party at a private residence with several other people. He said that you began the evening having a great conversation about his career, and he got the impression that you were going to take him under your wing in the industry.
Okay, so first of all, the Viper Room is like a rock club that was owned by Johnny Depp
Yeah.
for many years. He still owns it. And it gained some really sad notoriety when River Phoenix died and OD'd on the street outside. The club is small and it's loud. I mean, it was a huge rock scene, but it wasn't my scene. I've only been there a few times, I think. But based on what you just said, the information we've been given here, I'm just not sure how plausible it is to have had a great conversation about this guy's career while we were in the Viper Room. But that said, I don't recall this, and so I can't deny that I could have met someone at the Viper Room and had what they thought was a great conversation. But I do find it interesting that I'm being told that he got the impression that I was to take him under my wing. I mean, how is it okay for others to get the impression that I'm going to do something for them, but if I get the impression they want to do something with me, might be up for it, I'm the guy who's out of line? I have to say that one of the most challenging aspects of the allegations that have come out against me is that they include countless accounts of people saying that they assumed or they got the impression or they believed or they hoped or they planned that I, knowing me, being in a relationship with me, would help them fast track their career. And when you ask them why, they'll say that I asked them questions about themselves or maybe even offered to pass along a photo to a casting director.
Whereas I would argue that it's common to ask for help from those who are more successful in your industry.
Yeah, of course it is. But when you're in my position, it's hard to know who's interested in you just for you as a person versus who wants to use you to climb up the ladder.
Do you think that might be because many guys knew that you were gay? It was a bit of an open secret in the industry, and they knew that you might find them attractive, so they opted to flirt with you in exchange for some hopeful outcome that maybe would benefit them?
It really hurts to think so, but yes, probably.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, let's continue with contributor 3. He stated that at the party you invited him to an upstairs room where you asked for a hug. He said he went to give you a quick hug, but you grabbed him tightly and started to grind into him. He said he reminded you he had a girlfriend and told you he was a Marine, thinking that that might help you understand that he was not gay given the rules against homosexuality in the Marines at the time. He alleges that you replied with words to the effect of, "That's half the attraction."
Yeah, okay, so was there music, playing in this place we were at? I mean, did I move in and want to dance with him? I don't know. I mean, and also if someone tells me that they're in the military, I mean, any branch, and they think that's going to signify to me that they're not gay, that's just naive. And did you say half the attraction? I think any gay man would tell you that it's much more than half the attraction.
Yeah, and look, being attracted to a man in a uniform, that's not a crime. If it were, let's be honest, all of Soho would end up court-martialed. But this man said that soon after this encounter, you suggested you meet up so you could get his professional headshots. When you met, he said that you invited him to watch the movie Saving Private Ryan in a public cinema. He stated that in the cinema you began masturbating next to him. He said that he was shocked because there was horrific war footage playing at that very moment. He told us that you then reached for his hand, moving it towards your genitals to help you masturbate yourself, but he declined.
So the reason he's shocked is that there's horrific war footage playing? Well, can I just say that this is just one of those stories when you hear it, I mean, outside of the context of being accused, if it weren't in that context, I would laugh. I think this is even an episode of Seinfeld. So I'm having a hard time taking it seriously as it's just ludicrous. I, the truth is, I've never even seen Private Ryan, so I'm sorry that Matt Damon is being dragged into this mess.
Okay, but let's just go back a moment. I'm getting my head around this one. So, according to this guy, you meet him at the Viper Room, and then he tags along with you and some friends to a Hollywood party. Sounds cool until he says you grind up against him. That's when he decides to throw hints that he's not into it by telling you he has a girlfriend and that he's a Marine. But why doesn't he just say he's not gay? Or that he's not into it? Just tell you.
I don't know. Maybe he said that he was too afraid I might hurt him or his career and that nobody would believe him because I was so powerful. I don't know.
Well, yeah. And I guess you would assume after that, a night like that, he'd be happy to never see you again, right? But actually, that's not remotely what happens here. After that night, he says you invited him to get professional headshots, which turned into Saving Private Ryan, where you take out your willy and masturbate during a horrific scene. If that's all true, you're clearly not intending on helping him out with his career. So what's keeping him here? I think there can only be one answer, and that's he's using you for his gain again. And if I'm wrong, then his story ends now and you never see him again. But let's read on. This man said that following that incident, you called him periodically to ask him on trips or to his hotel. He declined these invitations, but said that he did accept when you invited him to a party with Bruce Willis. So it sounds like he was right to say no to the trips, but why is this guy accepting invitations of any kind from you at this point, unless he has his own agenda, because he is allowed to say no? He stated that when he arrived at your hotel before heading to the party, you began rubbing his shoulders and implied that you could help him become a big movie star in return for him engaging in sexual activity with you. Now, I am sorry if people think I'm sort of quote unquote shaming the victim here, and I hate even using that word victim because let's be honest, this is an accuser. This is not a victim, because what I am actually doing is blaming him. The Me Too movement, yep, in some ways it was powerful and important, but it's also, unfortunately, Kevin, paved the way for people like this guy to come forward in an effort to absolve himself of any responsibility whatsoever. And I'm sorry, this is bollocks. We all want to make it in whatever job we're in. So why does he think you're his only chance? It goes on, he stated that you were not responsible in exercising the power that you held from your celebrity status and used that power like a weapon. So this guy was clearly not responsible in exercising his brain. They say he has never publicly spoken about this incident before. Goodness me. But let's keep going. This is up now to your behaviour in 1999 and 2000. So in the documentary, we will hear from a man, contributor 4, who met you in 1999 when he was an unpaid intern on the set of The Big Kahuna. He told us that early during the shoot, you asked him to your dressing room to run lines. He felt like it was a dream come true. But by the second week, he stated that you were less interested in running lines and asked him to give him shoulder massages instead, which he agreed to do. He told us that during these massages, you were trying to engage in sexual activity with him, such as placing his hand on your genital area or you touching his genital area, both of which he declined.
Well, I have to say that this guy's story strikes me as much more in keeping with something that I might have done.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not proud he was an intern if it was, but at least this guy tells a story of us getting to know each other over a period of time, maybe a week or more, and that I have to give me a massage, or if he could give me one, I'm not quite sure what's being implied there, but then slowly progressing toward his private area or inviting him to touch mine. So yeah, I can accept the plausibility of this so far.
Okay, thank you for your honesty there. And then we have another straight man saying he has a girlfriend, though, instead of just saying he's not gay, because the letter says he said that he told you he had a girlfriend. I guess I would ask, why don't these guys just come out and say it? If there's a pattern here, it really does appear to be one of men trying to use you.
Well, it appears to me that they think, which is entirely in their head, I might add, that if they tell me they're not gay, then I will walk away, which is to say they do not want me to leave, nor do they want to leave. So what they really want, as you just said, and what I believe has become evident, is to quietly put up with me in the hope that they'll be able to use me for some sort of gain.
Yeah, I really don't think it's a question of who's using who anymore. Another point here too is that it seems they wish to once again blame someone else to absolve themselves of any culpability. So like, hey Kev, if I didn't have a girlfriend, I'd be down to hook up with you, but she would be really upset with me. So they're blaming their girlfriends for being the reason they can't hook up with you. But perhaps what they don't realise is that gay or straight, it's the chase that is often part of the fun. If only they were aware they were actually sending the opposite message to you than the one they now claim to have been sending.
Right. I remember when I was younger, the guys who told everyone that they had girlfriends in other cities were usually the gay ones.
Totally, yes. Okay, let's carry on. He said that on the last day of filming, whilst we were in a bar with the cast and crew, you asked him if he wanted to smoke some marijuana in the bathroom, to which he agreed. But when you were in the cubicle, he stated that you removed your penis from your trousers and pushed your tongue in his mouth.
Well, I don't recall that specific event, but I do recall many times in my life when I've smoked a joint in a bathroom stall and removed my Johnson from my trousers and my tongue in some other person's mouth, that he's suggesting I did all three of these at one go does make me wonder who was holding what. Now, look, some people might say I'm making light of, someone's allegation against me, but the truth is there's only two ways to look at this or to handle these kind of matters. Either confront me or contact the authorities. You know, in either case, at least I'll get a chance to, respond and maybe ask some questions. But going to the media to make a spicy show where you won't be challenged and where they will add tense music and a narrator to, give this one-sided story and an attempt to destroy my character without allowing me to question their credibility would never be accepted or tolerated in any courtroom. We have proper channels for this type of stuff, and one of those channels is certainly not Channel 4.
No, I know. And let me tell you, I know a lot about Channel 4, and Channel 4's morals in this case have sunk even lower than its piss poor ratings, which I didn't actually think was possible. But let's go back to the bathroom. He said he was concerned how he was going to get out of that situation when you were interrupted by a banging on the door, at which point you left the bar.
Yeah, okay, so that's entirely possible. I was stoned and decided to make an Irish exit. I mean, I think most of my friends can attest that I have a great ability to disappear from a bar without saying goodnight to anybody. The reality is saying goodnight is sometimes a long drawn out process. But so, if I'm tired and maybe stoned, like this guy says, and I was ready for bed, I just likely went home.
I mean, is it also possible that you could have left the bar immediately as you didn't want anyone to piece together that it was you who was in the bathroom with another man? Because I presume this was a bathroom, right? Like a cubicle just for one person.
Well, that's true as well. And it seems like you might have been closeted one time in your life too. Is that possible?
Weren't we all at one time, Kevin? Weren't we all? He told the documentary at on one occasion in his hotel room in New York, so, Christ, is this another time? This guy's choosing to hang out with you? Are we to assume that the weed was good or something?
Oh, I had very good sources.
Okay, so he told the documentary, and on one occasion in his hotel room in New York, you put his hand on your crotch in order that he would pleasure you sexually. So I'm glad they've clarified that for us. He said he was frozen in shock, and so you masturbated yourself. Now, I'm not going to mention this is at least the third time he alleges you invited him to help you masturbate, and yet this is the time he finds himself frozen in shock, because I don't know if he told this to them. Or if it was just lazy writing on Channel 4's part. But I will say, I hope this guy's finally had enough of you and moves on. Like, no offense, right? But surely this is time.
Absolutely, none taken.
But he told the documentary he wanted you to help him produce a script he had written. So Okay, there we have it. He has literally just confessed to why he keeps coming around. He won't tell you he's not interested because he's got something he wants to get out of you. He wanted you to help him produce a script he had written and explain that he had come to terms with the idea of doing, quote, something uncomfortable with you in order to get this help. So he reached out to you sometime later when he was living in Los Angeles. He said that one night you picked him up in your car and that within minutes you had removed your penis from your trousers whilst driving your car. He said he tried to give you oral sex as you were driving but gagged, and then you brought yourself to climax whilst continuing to drive. He has never publicly spoken about this incident before. Your response?
Well, it's interesting that he seems to claim that this was entirely his idea. And I most certainly wouldn't be the first person in Hollywood to receive oral sex in exchange for work. But I have never told someone that I would help them with their movie career in exchange for sexual favors.
Okay. Well, that is very categorical. So let's bring out contestant number 5. This is up to your behaviour in 2005. In the documentary, we hear from a man, contributor 5, who said he met you at the Golden Globe Awards in 2005. He said that you asked him to smoke marijuana with you at the event, during which you were talking about his career.
Well, what's not to like about that? A Hollywood star at the Golden Globes talking about someone else's career?
That is rare indeed. That is rare indeed. He told us that you invited him to a party that you said you were having in your hotel that night. He accepted, believing that he had found a Hollywood industry mentor in you. But he said that when he arrived at your hotel later that night, there was no one there. He said you told him people would come later.
Okay, so we have another person who has met me and decided that I'm going to be their mentor on the basis of me asking questions about them and their career. So if I were to spend the whole night talking about myself, I'm an arrogant asshole. But if I ask them about themselves, now I'm their mentor. I mean, is it possible that I could have met someone, offered to smoke some joints, and then invited them to hang out with me later in the night at my hotel? Sure. What I'm not sure about is why he says he accepted the invitation back to my hotel room on the belief that I was suddenly his mentor. I mean, would have been like midnight or later. It's the Golden Globes. There's lots of drinking and apparently some weed. I'll be curious to see if he clarifies in the documentary as to why he thought me asking him a few questions barred me from inviting him back to my hotel room. I mean, had I breached some mentorship relationship we created in the few moments that we were chatting together while we were high?
Yeah, I mean, clearly you've forgotten, Kevin, that in this new era, this Me Too era, you're actually not allowed to enjoy being famous. So the dream that you had, presumably since you were a child, where you would someday become a somebody, so you would finally be noticed by others, now makes you completely at risk of cancellation. So go find another dream, I guess.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that, and I know that you're just being facetious, but the reality is that I did only ever have one dream in my life, and that was to be an actor. And while I most certainly did love the attention I got, truth is, I would be quite content to never show up at another award show ever again, because for me, it's always been about the work. One of the greatest parts about being an actor is that you get to step into someone else's world. You know, provides great lessons in empathy. And if you do it well, and I believe you must do it, you want to do it well, you must do it without judgment. You have to accept the person that you are playing for all that they are and all that they're not, their past, but also what they dream of going toward. And, you know, for me, the real shame is that it took me years to begin to accept myself. And it's a process that I'm still struggling with every day. And I've come to understand that it's a large part of why I always enjoyed being someone else. I didn't want to be me. Being blocked from working has forced me to play the one role that I've been avoiding my whole life, myself.
Yeah, yourself. Maybe that can become a beautiful thought, though.
Well, I have had a lot of time to think about it.
I mean, I would argue too much time.
Well, thank you for that.
I mean, look, Kevin, regardless of what has happened, no one can take away the fact that you are one of the greatest actors of your generation, if not of all time. after winning your second Academy Award, I think it is worth reminding people that you actually moved to London. You came here to revitalise what was at the time a boarded up Old Vic theatre. So you did a great service for the people of this nation. And actually, I've spoken to a lot of people about this, and I want you to know that there are many, many ordinary people, especially in the UK, but around the world too, that appreciate the work that you've done, both on screen and in the theatre, and believe, like me, that you need to come back. I think it's important, actually, that the media narrative here is not the narrative shared by the public, because actually there are millions of people out there who were fans of yours and want to see you act again.
Thank you for saying that.
No, look, I completely mean it. I completely mean it. But let's get back to what we're here to do, which is to go back to hearing from one of your mentees. So after some time, no one else arrived at the party, and at one point he said he felt like it was time to go. He stated that you asked him to stay, but he told you he was not gay, at which point you said words to the effect of, "There's nothing like flipping a Marine that looks like you."
Was this guy actually a Marine, or is it just a coincidence that he claims I said that?
To be honest, I'm not sure. By looking at the letter, it doesn't actually say if he was also a Marine or not. He told us he feared that if he didn't leave your hotel room in a good light, it could cost him his career.
Can I ask a question? I don't want to be a jerk, but does
Sure.
Does this guy think I even know his full name at this point? I mean, odds are I barely recalled his first name. I wasn't exactly the best with names. My friends were always stunned by my ability to remember lines, the total inability to remember names. But the truth is, it's all just down to importance. I was just too selfish to place any importance on somebody's name I just had learned. So, I'm just not sure, was he thinking that I was going to track him down or make sure he never worked again in this business? I mean, it's a little ridiculous. Not to mention, by the way, this is 2005. I still had a lot to hide. And this is the guy, he's got all the power to tell other people I was gay. So wouldn't it be me that was afraid if he left dissatisfied that I might fear him telling others about my big secret, the secret which maybe he probably did. Hence, it's not a very well-kept secret in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's true. But this is important, Kevin. He stated that you put your arm in front of the door of the room and locked it.
Yeah, that's such an outright lie. I'm sorry, I have heard things like this before, and it's just utter nonsense. I have been a promiscuous flirt. I've been annoying at times, definitely persistent, but I have never, not once, blocked someone from leaving a room or locked a door. Never. I even cried once to try to keep somebody in the room. But I've never put my arm in front of the door or locked it. This person described.
I mean, people might say that's quite a convenient thing for you to say.
Yeah, well, I'm not the one hiding behind anonymity. And by the way, if they do reveal their identities to the public during this documentary, it's going to only show that Channel 4 was doing all kinds of trickery by refusing to disclose the names in this letter to me. I mean, this letter should contain information that allows me to respond appropriately, and to not give me names and go back 48 years and expect me to respond within 7 days is an unfair game they're playing.
Kevin, can I ask you more generally how much this has all cost you?
Everything.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean specifically?
I've lost my jobs. I've lost my house. I've got 1 foot in bankruptcy. Everything.
And that's despite the fact you've never been found guilty of a single crime.
No, and actually the timing of all of this, just once again, coming just as I'm getting more jobs.
You say once again. So what do you mean by that? This has happened before?
Well, in May of 2022, it was announced that I was doing 3 new films. And within 7 days of that announcement, prosecutors in the UK suddenly announced that they would be charging me in Great Britain. After a 3-year investigation, they suddenly decided the time was right to proceed with the charges right after all these stories had come out about me going back to work. And then mincemeat, roast beef, whatever they're called, announces that they documentary 1 month later. And we know from sources that they surely, was not going to surprise you, that they were banking on me losing the rap trial and the UK trial. And after that failed for them, they went running for the gutters to collect whatever spoils that they might find. And now that I'm back to work again and have some amazing projects lined up, they show up with this new surprise attack a week or so ago on April 22nd. And I have to say, I think people are tired of this. I'm not even speaking about just me. I mean all of it. The irony that I'm being railroaded for supposedly misusing my power when everyone can see that this is a true misuse of power. The idea of just believing whatever some contributor tells you and then threatening me with it. I mean, I hate to keep repeating myself, but this process is a joke. Let a jury decide, or find some other fair way.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most disturbing things, actually, Kevin. Due process is out the window. You are now guilty before being found innocent. But in your case, being found innocent twice is still not enough. It is absolute madness. And look, it's one thing to blame a network or a production company, but we all know that behind the names are people. So I want to make sure we give credit where credit is due. And that is to these despicable witch hunt merchants at Roast Beef Productions, because I don't think in the future we should allow us to forget the names of Dorothy Byrne and Mike Lerner or Catherine Hayward or the countless other people involved in what is slanderous bile that they are going to attempt to pass off as credible. But look, lots of people, Kevin, are going to want to know about your work and what the future holds. I'm told you have actually filmed some new movies.
I have, and it's been really remarkable to get back to.
Yeah, I mean, that shows, I guess, how much acting means to you. Has it been different going back to work after what you've gone through?
Yes, without question. It's been very, very special because I never went into myself. Now that I've spent so much time over these last 7 years becoming closer to myself, closer to my friends, closer to my family, I'm really curious as to how that's going to affect my work. So it does feel very special, a very valuable time, because acting is really lying for a profession. You're trying to convince an audience that you're somebody else, which is probably why it came so easy for me and why many think I'm good at it. And yes, so I was lying, but not nearly as much to others as to myself. So it has been different going back to work as a man who's now conscious and desperately trying to demonstrate integrity. And I got to stay out of my own brain so that I don't begin to telegraph what I'm doing or what the process is.
Yeah, I find that fascinating.
Well, it is for me. It's exciting and it's challenging.
But now, and obviously this is one of the reasons that this is so hard for you, they're trying to take it all away from you again. So that's why I hope when people see you like this, and it's something that I've thought you should do for a long time, I understand why you haven't been able to, but I hope it will have a different effect.
Well, it's my only hope at this point.
Well, look, I think there is good reason to hope, but let's keep going on. He told us to get out of the room. He decided to give you a strong kiss on the lips, push you back and open the door. He has never spoken publicly about this incident before.
Well, I have no issue with how he decided to leave my room.
Well, no, if you believe what he's saying, maybe you would consider that he actually sexually and physically assaulted you before leaving, if we're holding him to the standards that he seems to be holding you to. But look, to your behaviour in 2007 now, in the documentary we hear from a man, this is contributor 6, who said that he took part in a masterclass that you ran in Juilliard, New York in 2007 when he was a final year Juilliard student. He said that at the end of that masterclass, you offered to help him with his audition material and then arranged a time to meet up to watch a student play.
Well, over the years, I've gone back to Juilliard. I went to Juilliard myself for 2 years, so I've gone back to teach some classes. I'm not a professor, and nor am I grading anybody, and I'm not there in a real official capacity. this was a final year student who's certainly of age who came over to chat with me. And so, I'm in my late 40s, and if you want to say my interest in men in the early 20s isn't cool, you certainly have the right to say that. And if you think it's not right that I might somehow have taken advantage of my position as a guest lecturer, you can also have that opinion. But what's curious to me is that it says I offered to help him with an audition material, and then we went to watch a student play. I mean, how would I have known about that play? My guess is, and this is only based on what they've given us, is that he would have invited me. So there I am, picture me flirting with a student who I offer to help with an audition. Of course, it's not clear whether he asked me or I asked him, but let's just take it on face value that I offered to help him. So then he invites me to this play, and yes, for those eagle-eyed viewers, they call it a student play, but this is the Juilliard School of Drama, where some of the greatest actors of all time have trained. So it's going to be on a very legitimate professional quality.
He said that when you met up to watch a play in the Juilliard Theatre, you frequently leant over and whispered in his ear, very close in a way that made him uncomfortable, and then put your hand on the inner thigh of his thigh. Sorry, you put your hand on the inner part of his thigh, which he took to be an unwanted sexual advance.
Okay, so we just heard from a guy who allegedly I met at the Golden Globes, where he claims that I invited him to come back to my hotel room and he thought it was going to be a mentoring session. And now we have a guy who claims that I offering to help him with his audition, and he invites me to go to a play, and I'm not allowed to think there's any possible connection between those. I mean, you see, Channel 4 has given us such little information that it's incredibly hard to know what this guy is claiming. I mean, putting my hand on the inner thigh of somebody is, could certainly be taken as a sexual advance, but an unwanted sexual advance based on what? Hindsight? Is he claiming he told me not to do that, or that my close whispers were making him uncomfortable?
Really important question, Kevin. Did Channel 4 offer to interview you for this?
No. I mean, I read the letter, but to my knowledge, no, they made no such overture.
So they send you this document, which most assuredly does not cover everything that's been said, and they want you to comment or refute these allegations.
Yeah, in 7 days after they've had 2 years to work.
Yeah, no, I know we've mentioned that already, but I just don't think people necessarily fully appreciate what's happening here. No matter what someone thinks about you, if they have common sense, they have to realize and admit that this is just not how justice is served. And by the way, it shouldn't be how the media operates either.
Yeah, but it's the opposite, as it unfairly allows them to gang up on me with no recourse. And as I've stated already, I would really just love to, be above all this and not have to talk about it, go back to my daily life, get back to work. But I have finally realized that if I don't fight back, this will never end.
No, totally. It's only you now who can uncancel yourself. So look, back to this Juilliard contributor. Following that meeting, so which meeting was the play a meeting?
Who knows?
Okay, but following that meeting, he stated that you called him roughly every 2 weeks for a 6-month period, asking him to socialize with you again, which he kept declining.
Yeah, let me ask you this. How many times have you heard stories told by, in some cases, very, very well-known people, that a couple that began with one partner chasing the other and chasing until the other finally gave in and gave him or her a chance, and today they're happily together? I mean, the truth is, right now, I could be sitting on a late night talk show and the host would say, Kev, your partner told us that after you met, that you called him every 2 weeks for 6 months, which he kept declining. And I would laugh and the audience would laugh. And I would say, yes, true story. And here we are celebrating 15 years together. And the audience would applaud. It would be this beautiful moment. But instead, I'm sitting here listening to the same story. And because it had a different outcome, it's not so cute. One outcome, I'm a hopeless romantic. The other, I'm a heartless prick.
Yes. No, that's completely true. And if you were asking for an actual answer, which I know you're not, by the way, I can tell you loads of couples I know in which one partner pursued the relationship far more than the other. But okay, so he said he found it very hard to say no to you because you had a lot of power and influence in the world of entertainment and had been his teacher recently. He said that if you were willing to exploit your position of power for your own desires, he does not think that is right. He has never spoken publicly about this incident before.
Well, it's a nice touch that he now finally calls me his teacher. You know, this is a moment in a trial where a jury would roll their eyes. And this is why it's unfair to just let people reframe an alleged encounter with me however they see fit in a one-sided hit piece. But he also seems to be saying that he had a hard time saying no to me because I was so powerful and influential, but he also says he kept declining. So did he say no, or did he say yes? And did I keep asking him? And did he say yeah? What did he? This one's sorry, it's hard to follow.
No, I know, and I sort of am sensing. I don't know if you agree, but I'm sensing Channel 4's desperation here. It's as if they're just including some of these people in the documentary to make the total number of people who have come forward seem more impressive.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that a number of accusations that were leveled against me were padded.
Look, another big question I've really wanted to ask you for a long time. Why do you think Netflix, the Old Vic, and other organisations that you had really important and fundamentally close relationships with, why did they turn on you so quickly?
Well, I think it was a bit of a cascading effect. I mean, my original statement after the BuzzFeed article most certainly didn't help or do me any favors. But it was the fact that Netflix, with whom I had such a strong bond with, turned on me so quickly that I think that sent a message to everyone else that if they're dumping him, well, they must really have some dirt, which they did not. And to this day, they are still searching for.
Has anyone from Netflix spoken to you?
No. But interestingly, they refused to give back a film I made for them about Gore Vidal.
Sorry, what do you mean?
Oh, well, in 2017, I shot a film about Gore Vidal for Netflix, and they have since refused to broadcast it or let anyone else broadcast it. And from my understanding, and I'm admittedly a bit in the dark here, so I welcome Netflix to set the record straight, but it seems that they won't even entertain the idea of selling the movie to someone else for more than they paid for it. And if that's true, why is Netflix, as a company, refusing to make a profit on something they have no interest in showing on their platform? It's curious.
So why do you think it is?
Well, I think you have to see the movie to fully understand. And that, frankly, is just what Ted Sarandos and Netflix are afraid of, people seeing the movie. You see, I was set to play the literary writer Gore Vidal, who was gay and had a penchant for younger straight men. So as Evan remarked when we first read the script, you know, if you do this, critics are going to say sarcastically that this was a real stretch for Spacey. But this was also another way we thought I could begin to reveal some of who I was by playing a character that was, well, not such a stretch for me that had things that were similar in my own life. And Ted Sarandos and Netflix were fully on board with this film and knew exactly what we were trying to achieve. And that's why we now believe that Ted can't let the public see it. But we feel strongly that the movie, in addition to being excellent with an incredible cast, represents a witness that the public has not yet been able to hear from. So I challenge the same mob that participated in my defenestration to ask Ted Sarandos and Netflix why they refused to show this film. Whether you love me or hate me or think the movie is great or crap, that doesn't matter. I suggest that the public will see who was really pulling the wool over their eyes if they're allowed to view the evidence. Netflix has no problem continuing to platform many of my other films, so let's see who really cares about the truth.
Okay, well, something tells me that your message will make it to Netflix and Ted Sarandos, of course, the chief executive of Netflix. Now, imagine if you got people to crowdfund to get this film back. I mean, I'd love to see it.
I'm all for that. I mean, maybe the media outlets who watch this might chase them for a comment like they do for me every day. But more than that, any journalist wanting a real scoop should investigate the role that Netflix played in supporting this movie before they ran as fast as they could from it. And what I find, spoiler alert, is that Netflix was all too happy to ride shotgun while I was making billions of dollars.
Yeah, of course. The cruel corporate brutality of Hollywood right there. Look, Kevin, it's important I alert our viewers that the next three contributors, this is 7, 8 and 9, are alleged to have taken place here in the UK. The laws here preclude us from sharing some of those details with the public. So we are shooting this now using an unredacted version, but just in case you see something has been blacked out later or one of our voices has been beeped out, that will be because we will have been advised not to reveal that information by lawyers. And I just want to be fully transparent about that. But it's an incident in 2008. And it's interesting that they have decided to refer to number 7 as an incident instead of a behaviour, actually, because in the documentary we hear from a man, contributor 7, who said he took part in a masterclass with you at the Old Vic. He said that when the students were taking it in turns to perform their scenes, he saw you putting your arm around the best looking men in the room and hugged one of them quite aggressively. He tells us that when he got up to do his scene, you came close to his personal space, held his shoulders, pressed your penis into his leg and whispered something to the effect of, "You don't give a fuck about what she has to say, you just want to fuck her in the ass." He explained how the cynical part of his brain thinks the students were all invited to the Old Vic under false pretenses to do a scene study on the play the Old Vic were doing, but actually you were just there deciding who you'd like to flirt with next. He has never spoken publicly about this incident before.
Well, this appears to be a story that has been filtered through the cynical part of his brain, to use his own words. I mean, the reality is he certainly has a right to ask his opinions, but this is just more evidence and proof that Channel 4 has no interest in facts.
I mean, Channel 4, let's remember, has asked the British public to reserve 2 nights of their lives so they can deliver the goods on the real Kevin Spacey. And this is what they're offering up?
Oh, well, I suspect that they're going to show lots of shots of me surrounded by men in a theater so they can add weight to this guy's opinion that I only hug the best looking people.
But let's get back to Channel 4's greatest hits, Still Your Behaviour in 2008. We hear from a man, but this is contributor 8, who said that he met you in 2008 when he was working as an usher at the Old Vic. He said he had seen you around the Old Vic and you had said hello to each other. He said that one night during a performance of Cinderella, he was sitting in the usher seat at the back of the stalls watching the door. He describes that you approached him there and pressed your groin against his face. He stated that after that incident, whilst he was working at the Old Vic, you touched him from behind and brushed yourself against him. He stated that on one occasion he felt your hand go inside his trousers, which he described as being an invasion of a human being. He said there was no relationship between you and instead you were acting as if you were entitled to do that to him despite his feelings. He has never publicly spoken about this incident.
I just have to say I find this allegation to be completely offensive. I mean, you know what? There were certainly times when I was inappropriate and flirty with people I worked with at the theater. A few I had consensual liaisons with. I'm still in touch with to this day. And yes, there were many nights that I went down to the pit bar and drank way too much for my own good, you know, casting myself as a drunk like so many of the theater greats before me. And I have no doubt that I was clumsy on many an occasion. But here again, there's someone taking liberties and changing the musical score of the scene, if you will, in an effort to give it new meaning. None of this happened in the way this has been described.
Okay, thank you for being clear on that. When was the last time that you were at the Old Vic?
2017, I went to see the production of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that Daniel Radcliffe was doing. That was an incredible production, and it was a night I won't forget. It had been 2 years since I had left my position, and I love that building, and I love the people in that building, and I was welcomed by everyone when I came back, and it's a night I will remember.
Would you be up for doing a play there again, or actually, given you've been cleared, a play somewhere else on the West End?
I'm invited, absolutely.
Okay, well, you've got to promise me tickets to opening night, okay?
Well, you'll have to speak to Evan about that.
I will do. Okay, so we're now up to 2013, and this is one man contributing 9.
Is this the last one?
Oh, God knows. God knows at this point, not quite. I'm sorry. But it's important we go through all of them. One man, contributor 9, told the documentary that he was an actor in a play called Sweet Bird of Youth at the Old Vic in 2013. Did you remember that play?
Oh, yes, it's a wonderful play, a Tennessee Williams play that's had a number of very successful productions. It's about an older woman and a younger guy and a transactional relationship between the two of them. Kim Cattrall was the woman, and Seth Numerick played the hustler in a production that was very good.
Okay. So he said that before the press night preview, an assistant of yours gave him an extravagant present from you, which was the original poster of the play signed by Lauren Bacall.
Well, there's nothing unusual about a cast member receiving an opening night gift from myself or Sally Green, who was the chief executive, or any other producers on the show. And the poster he speaks of, I think I would have gotten that from Drummond. There was a little store in the West End where he had these kind of wonderful, inexpensive, and great opening night gifts that were all related to the theater. But I'm honored that this person felt he was getting an extravagant gift.
Okay, so not extravagant, but a nice touch anyway. He said that later that evening, though, Kevin, outside the Savoy press night after party, when he went to shake your hand to thank you for the present, you turned him 45 degrees. He presumes to avoid cameras, put your left hand down by his bottom and stuck your middle finger as far inside him as possible, taking up the recess material of his trousers. He has never spoken publicly about this incident before.
This makes no sense.
So let's just think about this. Okay, so let's think about this. He's saying, if I've got my head around it, outside the Savoy, on a press night after party event, he says he comes over to shake your hand and you turn him 45 degrees, so 90 degrees would be fully to the left or the right. So he says you turn him midway between facing you and facing to the left or the right. I'm trying to imagine why that would avoid the cameras, because I've been to these sorts of events at the Savoy and there is literally a wall of cameras. I mean, there are hundreds of photographers. So I'm wondering how, if this incident took place, it wasn't actually captured on camera.
I have no idea. It's ridiculous and it never happened.
Okay. So you're categorical on that. And I presume, given Channel 4 are making this accusation, they will have a picture to prove it, maybe?
Produce it.
Yeah, well, let's see. In the documentary, we hear from a man, this is contributor 10, sorry, there is one more, who worked as an extra on House of Cards from season 2 to 5 as part of Frank Underwood's Secret Service. He told us that you and he had a friendly relationship. He said that one day when you were just behind the set, you touched his penis over his trousers. He described your behaviour as not criminal, but disgusting from a professional to have on set. He has never publicly spoken about this incident before.
Well, I think I know who this is because I recently found like 27 emails between us. And so I agree that we had a friendly relationship. That is true. And, you know, it's possible I engaged in some childish behavior like that at times. Yes. But would it have been in a sexual context? No, absolutely not. And that he now refers to it as disgusting is probably a little unfair, considering I was always with him in group settings and I wasn't the only one engaging in horseplay. But I accept his comments based on the very little context that I have here. Long filming days can make you silly and delirious, and I had many, many long filming days.
Yeah. Now we have what Channel 4 refer to as further contributors. So there's Witness A, and this is one woman who told the documentary that when she was a first team PA on the set of House of Cards, this is during seasons 2 and 3, she saw you get very close to male background actors or crew in a flirtatious way. She said you made the House of Cards set a hostile work environment for a lot of people and that this was common knowledge among the casting crew. She said that you impeded young male colleagues from completing their work on set and one was moved off set because of it. She also said that you felt your decision to come out as gay just after accusations were made against you was frustrating because it felt like you were sharing that information as a distraction from the allegations.
Well, I don't mean to directly insult this person, but she has no purpose here other than to be used as fodder and support for the other contributors, which is kind of telling because it shows the actual contributors can't carry the show alone.
So maybe we should actually call her a non-contributor, Kevin.
I concur.
Okay, well, there's one more of these. Witness B. One woman who was an extra on House of Cards said that on set she saw you put your hands and positions on people in a way that did not feel right, like on the lower back or leg. She said the tension on the show got worse as the seasons went on. She said she became really concerned when a male colleague asked her to hide him because he said you were after him. She said she called her union saying that you were a sexual harassment suit waiting to happen.
Another non-contributor who just wants to hear herself talk. Why is it, by the way, that both of these women have come forward to talk about other people instead of speaking for themselves? I do hope that she divulges which union she called, and I hope Channel 4 investigated how that union handled that complaint.
Well, remember, Roast Beef Productions, they have promised a forensic look, so let's see. But now they're interviewing a journalist who has an interview. In the documentary, we hear from a journalist. I've just used her initial CM. I know who this is. She talks about her investigation for CNN, which she published in 2017 about your behaviour on the set of House of Cards. She said that she spoke to 200 current or former employees of House of Cards and 8 agreed to go on the record, but on the record only under the condition of anonymity.
So, wait a second. She spoke to 200 people and only 8 were willing to go on the record about me, and that was on the condition of anonymity. So that means that 192 people she spoke with were unwilling to go on the record, even though she could guarantee they'd be anonymous. Why isn't the story here that 96% of House of Cards employees refused to say bad things about Kevin Spacey, even when offered anonymity? And of those 8, by the way, I'm fairly sure that the 2 non-contributors we just heard from were 2 of the 8.
So these people are using their story again and again. It will be interesting to know if this journalist got a promotion for this shoddy journalism.
Probably.
That does seem to happen. She said young men told her that you touched them inappropriately by rubbing their shoulders, patting their bottom, or giving a lingering hug. She said one man told her that whilst in a car you put your hands inside his trousers. She also explained about the arbitration dispute that you were involved in with MRC. Now that's the producers of House of Cards. She said that the arbitrator deposed several individuals who claimed that you touched them in a sexually inappropriate manner that was non-consensual.
Well, firstly, the arbitrator is a judge, and judges do not depose witnesses. In a legal case, as this one, both parties can, interview and depose anybody they think might have relevant information. Some or all of that testimony is ultimately then put before the jury, or in this case, the judge. But the arbitrator didn't make a request of some special kind to hear such information. MRC had hired an investigator who, interestingly, spoke to less people than this CNN reporter, and yet had about the same success rate. Nearly everyone spoken to had very kind things to say about me.
So were you close with the people on House of Cards?
Family. I love them. I love those people so much, all of them. And I was so excited to go to work every day. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And frankly, to have only 4% of the people to say crap about me it's a report card I can live with, especially in today's age where everyone is divided about everything.
Yeah, I guess another way of looking at this is that you were a president with a 96% approval rating.
Well, that was for different reasons, Dan.
Oh, goodness me. I have to say, I miss Frank Underwood, Kevin. House of Cards was one of my favourite ever dramas. Do you think, again, now that you've been cleared, that there could be another season of House of Cards?
Well, I think Frank Underwood is still very much alive and ready to bring his particular brand of fun to the private sector.
Wow, that is a show I would definitely watch. Unlike this Channel 4 hit piece. Going on, she said the arbitrator found this occurred across the first 5 seasons of the show. She said the arbitrator found the witnesses to be credible and the allegations against you to be true. She makes clear that the arbitrator did not find that you have done anything criminal.
Oh, and how much attention do you think Channel 4 is going to give to the fact that the arbitrator did not find that I had done anything criminal? How much do you think they'll say that?
Probably not as much as we've just done now. She said that the arbitrator awarded MRC damages. She explains that you appealed this decision, but then a judge in the Superior Court of California ordered you to pay MRC over $30 million, endorsing the arbitrator's decision.
Yeah, well, I have to sort of read something now that's legal because I can't. You'll understand. That ruling is still under appeal and it's been stayed until the end of this year. Unfortunately, I'm currently unable to comment on my dispute with MRC beyond that. But I do have to say, I think I'm entitled to ask why Channel 4 is relying upon this reporter to do their work for them when all they have to do is look at the case that's being litigated in Los Angeles County Superior Court between MRC and its insurers. It's all right there, folks.
Well, I'm guessing it's not convenient for their narrative or for them to go searching. The Channel 4 letter ends by saying, in the documentary, we make it clear that in 2022, you were found not liable for sexual battery in the civil trial brought against you by actor Anthony Rapp in New York, USA. And we make clear that in 2023, you were cleared of all 9 charges against you involving 4 different men in the criminal trial in London, UK. Many of the men who shared their experiences with you state that they respect those verdicts. Nonetheless, whilst it cannot be described as criminal, they believe it is important to discuss your inappropriate behaviour in this public setting. So now we know why they haven't spoken up until now. They were just waiting for Roast Beef Productions and Channel 4 to ring them up. So maybe now would be a good time to invite anyone involved with this documentary who wasn't lucky enough to make the final cut to reach out to tell us about your experience. So we've set up an email address, spacey.rightofreply@gmail.com. And please do reach out because we'd love to hear anything you'd like to share about the making of this documentary or any issues you have with Roast Beef Productions or Channel 4. And now for the closing of this letter from Channel 4. It says, Kevin, I welcome your response to these testimonies and look forward to incorporating it fairly into the documentary. Please respond by the 29th of April 2024 at 4 p.m. UK time. Any response you do provide may be fairly edited in accordance with the provision of the Ofcom Broadcasting Code. If you do not respond to this request for comment by the deadline given, we will reflect this in the documentary. Signed off, yours sincerely, Mike Lerner, Executive Producer for Roast Beef Productions.
Well, thanks, Mike Lerner. I'm sure that you have every intention of fairly incorporating these responses produced here today into your documentary, because at the end of the day, the public will get to decide.
That is true. Before we go, Kevin, in response to this documentary going public, you gave this statement to Variety. I'm honoured to be starring in my first film with Warner Brothers in many years. I hope the Academy takes note of some of the great acting by the lesser known cast.
Well, I hope that people can now better appreciate where I'm coming from. And for someone to quote unquote who's close to the project to once again hiding behind their anonymity say they were left speechless by my response, good for them. But as for me, I will no longer be speechless.
Well, I'm delighted about that. Thank you so much for being so honest today.
And thank you, Dan, so very much. And I want to say my sincere thanks to everyone who tuned in. Regardless of what your opinion might be, I appreciate that you took the time to listen, because you are my jury.
Thank you for watching my world exclusive Outspoken interview with Kevin Spacey, and there's much more where that came from. So please do subscribe right now here on YouTube to Dan Wootton Outspoken. My new news and opinion show will be launching later this year, but you can be the first to find out about it. Plus, I've got loads of other content for you to watch too. Also, if you want to sign up to my articles and get updates to your inbox, then subscribe for free right now at www.danwootonoutspoken.com. Wootton is spelled W-O-O-T-T-O-N. Thank you so much for your company today, and I'll see you very soon.